Breakers! I am Mike Senior, and this is the 54th episode of Project Studio Tea Break. I am here with deep undercover Olivia Award winner John Whitten.
Did we actually not talk about it on the show?
Never have.
Okay, in that case, I've just been better than everyone for the last few months without even realising it. So much the better.
I mean, it seems a bit redundant to ask you whether you've earned your tea break now.
I haven't earned a thing since then. I've just been sort of coasting through. The show that I was doing last Christmas, Wolf, Witch, Giant, Fairy, was honoured with a Best Family Show Olivier Award, which was very, very exciting.
I mean, surely it should have been Best Wings.
I think that was implied.
Yeah.
There weren't enough tickets to get the whole company to the Royal Albert Hall to enjoy it there.
Oh, wow, okay.
So the core company and our producers went, and the rest of us went to a pub, rented an upstairs room and watched it on the projector.
And had far more fun.
And had, I'll be honest, far more fun. Because... Not least because after we heard it announced and whooped and wailed and got to cheers with ciders, which they didn't get to do.
Oh, God, yeah.
We could then just natter for the rest of the evening. They had to sit respectfully through hours and hours more content.
Through Best Alternative Shakespeare reenactment.
Although they had the honour of when they left stage and had to be kind of ushered via backstage back to their seats.
Yeah.
They were met by Draco Malfoy.
Oh, wow, cool.
That was the person they'd got to kind of greet people and show them the way through backstage. I can't remember the actor's actual name, but yeah, him, that guy.
Wow.
So that's pretty neat, I reckon. Have I earned my tea break this month? Oh, God, you know, I'm not sure. I think I might be sneaking this one in.
Okay.
This month has been properly scattered.
Yeah.
I have flown to and from Berlin 4 times in the last 3 weeks.
Wow.
Which is far more than I'd have liked to.
Do you think it's possible that there might be some large management company or agency who is playing pitch tennis with you? I'm just wondering whether they're seeing how long of a rally they can keep you going with across the channel.
Well, they are doing an excellent job so far, I don't mind telling you. I'll tell you what. I haven't earned myself a cocktail party.
Okay.
I haven't earned myself a feast or a parade. But maybe a tea break is actually perfectly appropriate.
I think so.
Because I've done lots of little jobs which in their own wearing way have been quite exhausting. I think that's about the right time for a tea break.
Can be a reason to sit down gently in a comfy chair and go, as you dunk a digestive into your tea. Yeah.
Not in a way that has to kind of involve or excite anyone else, just a sort of, bit of rest.
Now, we have had some follow-up this month.
Okay, hit me.
Following up from our scorn of the Ionic original medium.
Yes.
One of our regular listeners, Mike J.
Hey, Mike.
Pointed out that there had been a recent controversy in the hi-fi world.
Oh, yeah?
To do with a company called MoFi, short for Mobile Fidelity, who have carved out a niche for themselves for being one of these purveyors of uber, more analog than thou vinyl reissues of classic albums.
Okay.
You know, in fact, I'll tell you what, I will send you a picture that comes from the inside of the sleeves of their deluxe vinyl editions.
Okay, let's see.
That explains their ultra-disc one-step process. Because, I mean, normally you'd use the original lacquer to create a father disc and then a mother disc and then a metal stamper with which the vinyl records that you then buy would be pressed. And the concept is, you know, there are so many stages in between the original lacquer and the final vinyl disc you'd listen to, then obviously there are generation losses. And
Right, yeah, because it's a copy of a copy of a copy.
Yeah, you know, MoFi have tried to strip this down by, you know, having a lacquer and then a special kind of convert in the middle from which they then run their limited edition vinyl to get much closer to the source.
Okay, and I mean, I'm assuming the reason it's done in the longer step version is it means you can do more discs.
Oh, yeah, it's all about mass production.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the stamper is then a big metal disc that is really hard-wearing. But, of course, because MoFi are doing limited edition, they can afford to kind of concertina the process so that there's not as much generation loss in the middle.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and play my cards. This sounds perfectly reasonable to me.
Yeah.
Like, this sounds like a perfectly reasonable way to get a higher fidelity to an original master recording.
Yeah, and it's been lauded in various of the hi-fi press. You know, some of the very top people in the hi-fi press, you know, list some of the MoFi albums as being some of the greatest vinyl releases ever done, as far as they're concerned from an audiophile perspective.
Wow, okay.
Well, a little while back...
Oh dear, is something about to happen?
A record shop owner, a guy called Mike, Esposito,
Yeah.
did a YouTube video saying that he'd heard a rumour from the MoFi people
Oh, yeah.
that the discs weren't being made from analog masters, they were being making from digital files.
Oh, my God. So that original master recording was already ones and zeros.
And immediately, I mean, there was all sorts of hoo-ha about it, and he was slammed by one of the Rolling Stone article that was writing about this, called him the Dean of Audiophile Writing. He's a guy who was like an expert witness for Quincy Jones versus the estate of Michael Jackson a while back.
Wow.
A guy called Michael Fremer, and he basically said, oh, no, I've spoken to the people I trust at the company, obviously off the record for the moment have said, there's no way that this isn't from analog master recordings.
Yeah.
And the company then offered to give Mike Esposito a tour of the place.
Okay, cool.
So we could look round and check their process. And basically the company then, when he went to visit them, admitted on video that for years...
Oh my God.
They had been putting the analog master tape... So they had been using the analog master tape.
Okay.
They'd been putting it through a DSD digital stage before making the first lacquer. So all these uber analog releases
Oh my God.
had all been going through digital.
That's hilarious. That is exactly the kind of story a lazy musician like me likes to hear. Someone who's just, I'll listen to it on my Tesco earbuds for now, and that'll be fine.
Yeah.
This is exactly my kind of story. This confirms all my priors.
Yeah.
In a way that I really enjoy.
And finally,
Wow.
they basically had to concede that this had happened.
Yeah.
And they've updated their little blurb on the inside the jacket to this. And I wonder whether you can just spot the difference.
Okay, let's have a peek. Oh, wouldn't you know it? There's another step. Now, they've been very clever, though, listeners. If you're not signed up to the newsletter and you can't look at this in person, because they have lined up their process, in a long line.
Yeah.
And they've put it directly above the traditional process. And you can see that the traditional process is much longer just because it's got more steps in it.
Yeah.
Now, what they've done when they had to add another step to their own is they just put it underneath the first step, therefore not making their chain any longer at all.
No.
They just sort of squished their chain up.
The other thing I love about it, the way they've done it, is that there are icons for all the stages. So you've got the analog master tape that has these lovely little reels, and then all the various disc stages that look like little vinyl discs. But the digital stage isn't a whole bunch of zeros and ones or any kind of digital stuff or a circuit or something. It just says DSD.
Yes, you're so right.
So if you didn't know what DSD was...
You would still have no way of knowing.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
And apparently now someone is suing MoFi in a class action lawsuit on behalf of every buyer of a MoFi record before 2022.
I mean, yeah.
Since they updated their packaging.
Yeah, that seems entirely fair. If this is what you're going to build your company on, then the one thing you really can't be doing is writing digital info to a vinyl disc.
I mean, it's just, the thing is that all of this stuff about these kind of more analog than thou things is that the bottom line is that it being analog is always considered to be the better thing.
Right, yes.
You see, if you then said, OK, I still think those MoFi releases are great, then why shouldn't you say, OK, I won't have the vinyl at all. I'll just have the DSD digital file, which has no generation loss from the original master tape.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
So, the moment it has that DSD stage, it completely invalidates the whole idea of it being on vinyl, because their same arguments for it being vinyl would be the same arguments to actually go from the DSD file.
Okay, let me throw something at you. Having no kind of experience or indeed opinions on this myself, I'm going to parrot someone else's. I have one friend who really likes vinyl, who, whenever they go into the studio, records to tape, all this sort of thing. And their argument is that they think it sounds better.
Yeah.
But they distinguish. They don't think it sounds more accurate.
Yes.
They like the sound of vinyl. It's a warmth. It's a roundness. So by that logic, it would be better to have it, on vinyl, even if you could have the digital file that was written onto the vinyl. The vinyl, I guess, then works as a sort of compressor EQ that you're fond of.
It ceases to become an argument of fidelity which is a lot of what the audiophile argument is about.
Yes.
It's less an argument of fidelity and more an argument of coloration.
Yeah.
And then it's just, I like vinyl more, rather than, if you don't listen to everything on vinyl, then your ears are made of cloth.
It actually takes it kind of the opposite way from this claim that you're listening to it as the artist intended.
Yeah.
You're not at all. What you're doing is you're going to the National Gallery and putting Instagram filters over all the paintings. And honestly, look, if you prefer to look at them that way, if you prefer the look of the paintings that way...
With the kitten filter.
Yes, yeah, there you go. By all means. Yeah. But you don't get to make the claim that that's what Manet really meant.
No.
This is such lovely news, Mike. This is so wonderfully, incredibly silly.
And I mean, it makes it so much better that there was that brief mid-stage where people like Michael Fremer came out of the woodwork to question the guy's skepticism.
Yeah.
On the basis of, they sound incredible, and having pinned their colours to the mast. I mean, all of us have done this.
Yeah.
We've talked about this multiple times in Facepalm of, automating the wrong channel and thinking that you're making a difference. But it's somehow so much juicier with audiophiles who put so much cachet behind it.
It is. I recently had a moment of that. I was doing a trumpet recording session in Berlin, and we were trying to do a mic comparison.
Yes.
And it was two perfectly nice mics, and recorded something, and we A-B'd between them. And everyone agreed that we all liked the first mic better. And I was, Mike, I was so tempted to just let it slide. Because they were both fine mics.
Yeah.
And we had a lot to get through that day and all the rest. But because I learnt at the feet of Mike Senior, I was like, is one of them louder? And it's, no, they're about the same distance from that. I was like, I know, but could you just normalise both of them for me?
Yeah.
And then mix them round and we try again. And wouldn't you know it, Mike, no one could tell the difference. It turned out we all preferred the louder one before, because of course we did. There's more detail, there's more power, there's more warmth, there's more everything, because there is more everything.
You are now a Jedi.
Yes, and it's horrible, and it's rubbish, because it meant that we then had 15 minutes of our massive audiophile producer trying to have an opinion between the two.
Oh, dear.
When the fact was, in that room with that instrument, they were indistinguishable.
No difference.
Absolutely no difference.
And let me guess, they shot the messenger, effectively. You were getting daggers from the producer.
Well, this is the lovely thing, isn't it? Because no one can really complain per se, but yes, there was a lot of daggers being shot in my direction. And then, eventually, the argument that, look, if one of them's coming in louder, that does mean that it's kind of a higher resolution.
Higher over the noise floor kind of idea.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, to which I said, yeah, sure, totally that.
You found that common ground.
Yeah, exactly. Ignoring for the moment the fact that this is going to go behind a piano and a rhythm section and double bass and all the rest of this stuff and the fact that our trumpeter is warm and ready to go, and that for me is 5,000 times. Actually, I'm not going to say that. I was about to say it's 5,000 times more important, and that's not true. I think my favourite way to work is when I'm allowed to pretend that's true, that all that matters is the performance.
Yeah.
And I have someone else who, in the moment, we both agree I'm going to drastically underappreciate, who makes sure it sounds gorgeous.
Yeah.
And they can think that I'm faffing around doing nothing, and that's fine. We can both believe that we're the only people working in the room. And of course, the performer gets to believe that they're the only one working in the room.
Which brings us to this month's news, and our first bit of news. It's a sad piece of news because this will unfortunately be the very last episode of Project Studio Tea Break.
Before the feature film.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be like Deadwood. We'll leave it a couple of years and then we'll come back and do a special Grammys double episode or something.
I shouldn't say this. We've been bought by Paramount.
Yes.
We're going to be directed by J.J. Abrams. We've got the people who did Avengers on our visual effects.
And it's going to be called Commercial Studio Banquet.
Commercial Studio Banquet, exactly. I didn't think we were dropping the title in this episode, Mike, but okay.
And what a ride it has been for the last 4.5 years.
Has been, eh?
And in fact, we have recently passed an important milestone.
Oh, which is that?
Because we've exceeded 100,000 downloads.
Oh, that's really nice. Thanks, everyone.
There have been so many pioneering moments. I mean, obviously, a series of pioneering Toast Foley firsts.
Well, which the outside world had no choice but to sit up and take notice of.
As was evidenced by our very own fleeting Google whack. I mean, there can't be that many podcasts who've had one.
No, not anymore.
We've had the only known interview with elusive dominatrix Miss T.
Yeah, no, she has gone completely off the wires since then.
We've had a world record.
God, we have had a world record.
And an energy quotient rating of 4.98. I mean, it didn't quite match the perfect 5, but 4.98 is pretty good.
That needs to go top of my CV, as far as I'm concerned.
We'll console ourselves with our gold Courier of the Week badge.
Oh, yes.
Which is actually still sitting up on my wall. I put it on
Good.
the wall
That's
of my
exactly
studio.
where it belongs. So long as you leave room for the platinum record next to it.
Yeah.
I think that's entirely allowed.
Well, I figured, you've got the Olivier Award, and I need to have something that truly balances it out.
There is one cast member who I'm not going to name.
Yeah.
Who all they could talk about at the pub was that they wanted to lick the Olivier Award. And we are all a little giddy, so this is just fine. But
yeah.
Anyway, then the core team jump in a cab when things finally wrap up.
Yeah.
At the Royal Albert Hall, and they zoom over. And wouldn't you know it, this cast member wasn't joking. I don't know how many licked Oliviers there are, but we've got one of them, I guess.
I mean, I'm hoping that you're going to tell me the answer to the question that I'm sure you must have asked.
Oh, which is that?
What did it taste like? What is that sweet taste of success?
I did ask them what it tasted like, and they said victory. But the look on their face made me think that at least wasn't the only flavour, and that they were maybe slightly regretting their decision.
Or that victory was some kind of brand of brass polish.
Yes, I could entirely believe that.
So, have you had any particular highlights of the last 53 episodes?
Oh, my word. I mean, it's turned me on to a huge amount of good music.
Yes, ditto.
And about as much silly music. I know that there's a lot of fan theories out there that believe that my naive ingenue bit is all an act that I do to kind of make people who aren't experts feel welcome. I can reveal now it is entirely genuine, and I learn as much as anyone in these episodes. Like my mixing has got my recording. I've got new instruments purely as a result of this.
I can never watch another drama production without looking for them passing a condom between the players.
I think a real highlight for me has been the games that I have consistently been awful at, but I really enjoyed nonetheless. The kind of which of these is real sort of games.
Oh, yeah, some of the quizzes. I mean, we had a couple of Christmas quizzes, one about sleigh bells and various... We had the Actors albums.
Yeah, oh, yes.
You did a great one about festivals.
I'd forgotten the festivals one. I mean, the cleansing power of confessing one's face palms.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly catharsis there, I would say.
Abso-bloody-lutely.
There have been some great audio moments, too. I mean, we've had the sound of alligators on heliox. We've had a cheetah purring.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
We've had the Golden Gate Bridge sounding like an Aeolian harp.
There was one time where your jam was the podcast field recordings.
Yes!
And that is one of my favourite podcasts to this day.
Yeah.
I think it's just such an amazing idea. For those of you who aren't quite as deep in the lore of this podcast, it was started by someone just standing in a field and recording the sound of the field. And since then, people have submitted the perfect range from fascinating, how on earth did they get that sounds, to just, Westminster, 2:00 in the afternoon. It's an incredible library.
I think my highlight, though, for audio moments has to be the enthusiasm with which you received my fake spider sonification on behalf of Marcus Bueller.
Oh, yes!
Which said everything that we ever needed to know about that research project.
Oh, my God. Oh, I still feel a little bit angry. I'm still slightly upset.
We've had a lot of cool research stuff, actually.
I think so.
Funny stuff we followed up that then's been quite interesting. Like, there was a whole bunch of stuff about the Stonehenge thing.
Yes!
And the heliox alligators as well was great. The cat vocalizations was great. There were loads of them where you actually look underneath the surface of some of these press releases that the rest of the world sees, and you get to a whole bunch of crazy stuff underneath. Or even that one with the zero-G spaceflight thingy.
Oh, so much anger. So much unhappiness there. Oh.
But how can we miss off our list of highlights the Rebecca Angel trailer?
And then getting the real Rebecca Angel onto the podcast.
To introduce us to the Rebeccaverse.
Not to toot our own horn so much, but I think it speaks very highly of us that we could forget that. that could be not the first thing that we say. I tell you what, though, I think the most moving thing to come out of this podcast for me, and I don't think I've talked about this on the show before, was when we were deep in pandemic.
Yeah.
And I was working at the Jam Factory, which was sadly not an alternative improvised music venue. It was actually just a factory that produced jam, as, all the performance stuff was gone and I couldn't get the work and I needed the money.
Yeah.
And this featured in our chats and was all well and good.
Yeah.
And then I got an email from a musician in the States who thanked me for being quite so open about that, who'd recently, in the pandemic, had the need to take on other work, non-music work, and that they had been feeling really rubbish about it.
Yeah.
But hearing me not feel particularly rubbish about it and just laugh and joke had made them feel like this is something they could be honest to people about.
Oh, wow.
And
cool.
That was such a moment for me of this humbling feeling of I'm wittering away into quite a number of people's ears every month, which they are somehow enduring. And how glorious to have been given the privilege of having that sort of impact.
Yeah.
So that's a moment that really stands out for me.
And also, I just think it's something that we don't hear enough, is the stories of otherwise demonstrably competent professionals cocking things up. Because there's a skill in dealing with that, isn't there?
Yeah, you're always going to have face palms. You just get better at sort of finding your way through them. and equally, when you can't, realising that the world doesn't end.
Even though you want it to, at the point where Maltesers scatter across the stage.
Oh, gosh. In that moment, you could really do with it maybe ending a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When the entire studio doesn't work and you've got the client coming in 2 hours. And of course, we can now give a final verdict on the debate that has been going throughout the whole series.
Oh, my word. That was like episode 1 or 2 or something where that beef was originally.
The question is Ludovico Einaudi, as Mike maintains, an irredeemably unscrupulous hack peddling a threadbare musical formula for cash? Or, as John asserts, a genuine artist enriching the world with beautifully framed melody?
Mm-hmm.
And looking at the poll, as of today,
Yep.
it is even Stevens at 6-all. I mean, there's a perfection in that, I think.
I think there is. I think perfectly balanced is the way that should wind up.
The dark and light sides are equally weighted.
Okay, I'm willing to shake hands with you and call it, unlockdownable. Perhaps it is a superposition of both.
Yeah.
Perhaps what the universe is telling us is that absolutely it is 100% a cynical cash grab of a musical formula. It is also very pretty.
Yeah.
And as uncomfortable as those two truths may make you, there they are.
So he's an irredeemably unscrupulous hack peddling a threadbare musical formula for cash, who is also a genuine artist enriching the world with beautifully framed melody.
I feel like we can riffle shuffle those together, you know what I mean?
And an unscrupulously genuine artist with
yes.
enriching the hack with pedals of beautifully framed formula. Hang on.
Wait a minute.
Now, if end the podcast we must, I can scarcely think of a cooler and more indie move than to end it at episode 54.
Oh my gosh, I hadn't even thought about that.
Because you see, that means pro rata, we've each done 27 episodes. Which puts both us as podcasters into the 27 club.
Okay, yes.
I assume you know what I'm talking about here.
Well, yes, this is apparently, if you're going to burn bright and then leave a beautiful corpse, live fast, die young, then that is the age at which you should die. Now, we have both, in purely temporal terms, slightly overshot the mark, having had even more bright burning to do than pretenders like
Jimi Hendrix and Kurt Cobain and Amy Winehouse and Jim Morrison and people. Yeah, Brian Jones.
All that lot. But in terms of podcast, that makes me very happy indeed.
Why not? Sneak in the back door of the 27 Club, kind of on a technicality.
And also, this surely this gives us the award, what I was thinking of, Project Studio 54. And if that's not the name of this episode, then I'll riot. I was about to say I'll quit, but of course course, when we're finishing the podcast, that becomes less of a threat.
Oh, I love that. That didn't even cross my mind. Oh, wow.
It is, in more ways than one, and a very appropriate moment to hit stop.
Now, the issue is, though, this is a bit of a kind of an urban myth, the idea of the 27 Club, that, like, famous musicians die more often at the age of 27. And it turns out that the British Medical Journal did a retrospective statistical analysis of exactly this question.
Oh, wow.
In 2011.
Good.
Taking all musicians who had had a UK #1 album between 1956 and 2007.
Okay.
So all the way from Frank Sinatra's Songs for Swinging Lovers in 56 to Leona Lewis's Spirit.
Classic.
In 2007. And amongst those 1,046 musicians, the way they characterised it then was that a musician was a famous musician if they had had this #1 already.
Okay, that makes sense.
And it turns out that the median age at which they had that #1 album was actually 26.
Oh, interesting.
So immediately that eliminated a bunch of them from the cohort.
Right, yeah.
And they also had to eliminate 114 of these 1,046 because there was no recorded date of birth.
Wow, that's very surprising.
They rather kind of laconically say, the 10% of musicians with no recorded date of birth were likely to be less famous. For example, bass players and backing singers. So I thought that was fun.
I would say so.
And also, we excluded 5 unlucky musicians with posthumous #1 albums, because they were never alive and famous at the same time, according to our definition. So basically, what they found by going through this stuff was that really, if you take deaths per number of at-risk musicians at that age, that the deaths at 27 were no more, really, than the deaths at 25 or 32.
Interesting.
And that actually, the real finding was that as a whole, the risk of death for famous musicians was 2 or 3 times that of the general population throughout the kind of 20s and 30s. There was a big peak at about 32.
Wow.
So I don't know whether this makes you feel more at risk now.
Well, no, see, I'm now 33. So thankfully, I dodged the assassins just long enough.
I mean, you know me, I went back to the actual study itself rather than just reading the headline. And there were just so many great bits in it. Here's one little passage.
Oh, yes, please.
The myth of the 27 Club supposes that musicians are more likely to die at age 27, whereas our results show that they have a generally increased risk throughout their 20s and 30s. This finding should be of international concern, as musicians greatly contribute to population's quality of life. So there's immense value in keeping them alive, brackets, and working, brackets, as long as possible. It's like, did we need a paper to tell us that it's worth people not dying?
That it would be nice if people didn't die.
We've decided to illuminate the blindingly obvious.
That is so gorgeously written, though.
Another cracker. Our sampling scheme only captured 3 of the 7 most famous 27 Club members, as 1 fell outside our time period, Robert Johnson, and 3 did not have a #1 UK album, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin and Jim Morrison. We did capture 7 Muppets. Because the Muppets had a #1 album. And in beautiful researcher style, they included them in the statistics, but they judged their deaths by the deaths of the performers who played them.
You know what? That seems fair to me. I'm 100% on board.
Exceptional.
I love this. I can't help but feel that this is some very serious researchers who, every time they wanted to let off steam, they just did a bit more work on this particular paper. It was left open on one computer in the corner.
Yes. I was also intrigued by one of the cited papers that I didn't follow up, but it was Howland J., Hinkson R. Alcohol as a risk factor for drownings. A review of the literature 1950 to 1985.
I mean,
There's whole areas of research you go, crumbs, I could get lost in there.
yes.
Now, towards the end of the study, they're clear about the limitations of their research. They go, other studies based on alternative definitions of fame are needed before we can definitively state that the 27 Club is a chance finding. 2 example definitions are using a #1 UK single rather than an album, which would capture one-hit wonders, which is a fair point, and using a #1 album in the US, which would examine the consequences of being famous in the US. And as it happens, there was actually another study done in the US.
Oh, hooray! Oh, I'm so glad. I thought that was going to be a quiet fade out, but no, good, excellent.
By Professor Diana Theodora Kenny of the University of Sydney.
Amazing name.
Who looked at the US statistics. Her sample was performing pop musicians. So this wasn't just the famous people.
Okay.
From all popular genres. So she had a group of people that's about 12,500.
Wow.
Who died between 1950 and June 2014. And those findings were really interesting because musicians were almost twice as likely to die at 56 than at 27. But more interestingly, across the board, average life expectancy was roughly 20 years less than in the general population in every decade.
Oh, that's really sad.
And in fact, in the 90s, it was like 25 years less. And I've got a great graph to send you from this article.
Yes, please.
They broke down the causes of death into accidental, suicide and homicide and compared it to the actual national statistics for deaths.
Oh, my word.
Like, accidental death was 5 or 10 times higher. Suicide was between 2 and 7 times higher, and homicide rates were up to 8 times higher.
Wow. I mean,
so being a musician, this is a risky business.
Just visually, it's really something, because the general US population line crawls along the bottom of every single one of these graphs.
Yeah.
And then the pop musicians line just kind of sails up over it.
It's like a mountain range in the background of a ground-level forest.
There's the kind of low-lying farmland and then mountains up above it.
But the thing that intrigues me most about these statistics is why does the average life expectancy decrease to 25 years less in the 90s? And I think the answer might be Nickelback. I mean, you could maybe paint it as the entire grunge scene, but I think I would lay the blame with Nickelback, frankly.
I think this is an important bit of information. They need to publish an addendum. Stunning new research has found.
The impact of Nickelback.
Because there are still lives we can save.
And it is surely another sign that this final episode of our series of podcasts is blessed, that into my email inbox this month dropped a fresh press release from Lydia Sherwood of Presto Public Relations.
Mike, words cannot describe how happy I am to hear that. That is glorious, glorious news. What do you got for me?
Joining the illustrious roster that has already featured Rebecca Angel and Todd Mosby, we have the Roosevelt Sessions. Fun-loving criminals are back with a new EP, a new lineup, and a USA tour in November.
Now, is that a name that I've actually heard?
I know! That was my thought! Crumbs! An artist that I hear about from Lydia Sherwood that I don't go, who?
Yes, these are American rap rock band.
Exactly!
Scooby Snacks. Okay, yes. Oh my God.
And I'm glad you know Scooby Snacks. Did you ever see the video of Scooby Snacks?
I don't think so, no.
Because one of the things that they do in the video is that they're performing for what looks like a kind of a dinner theatre audience of old age pensioners.
Okay.
And so it's particularly amusing that the picture that they provided with the press release is this one.
Oh, wow.
Where they're looking surprisingly close to being members of their own audience now.
Also, so the shot is them at the bottom of a flight of stairs in the New York subway, and it's very gritty and it's very grimy, and they look very cool and very masculine. The 3 members of the band are not all of the same height. 2 of them are, and one of them appears to be distinctly shorter. This is fine and nothing to necessarily remark on.
No.
Except for the fact that for this photo, they have pushed the shorter one back another step, up onto the staircase, so that in the photo, the heads are about the same level.
Yep.
That draws more attention to it than just having them standing in a row would, I reckon.
Yes, I reckon so. Or they could have sat them all on the step.
Well, yeah, 100 different options, but what they did, I'm not fully convinced by.
Yeah.
So let's hear what magic has been offered.
Charismatic multi-instrumentalist Brian Fast Liza is on lead vocal duties following the departure of Huey Morgan in November last year.
Wait a minute, it's a trio and one of them's different.
And furthermore, there were only 2 founding members in that trio, one of whom has now left. They'd already replaced their drummer with a guy called Frank Bembini, and the guy who's just left was the front man.
Okay.
So Brian has now taken over the vocals that Huey used to do. And my question is that, thinking back to their heyday, what was it that drew people to the fun-loving criminals in the first place? I mean, I'm not sure it was the charismatic multi-instrumentalist.
This is fair. I think what is that I was 15, and it's what everyone else was listening to.
There are some choice comments in the press release. Things like, fun-loving criminals are entering a new chapter, said Fast, with a steely focus on creating new music that our fans will love.
A steely focus?
What were they trying to do before?
Yeah, it's a very good question.
Another thing's just occurred to me.
Oh, yeah?
Right, I wonder whether this is like a trade descriptions violation.
Oh, yeah.
Because if the fun-loving criminals were this original trio, and they've got rid of 2 of the members, shouldn't it be the fun-loving criminal? with 2 guest perpetrators.
Yes. No, I think I think you're right. I think with only the removal of a single S, they could more accurately represent the world that they're in. The fun-loving criminal and his handlers and the prison guards and like
security.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun to be had here. Okay, so what else does Lydia Sherwood have to say?
There's some just great nonsense like Shake It Loose, the second track on the EP, addresses the mental health issues that inspired Fast and Frank to create new music and perform to their fans worldwide after the departure of Huey Morgan. With silky backing vocals from Ben Beanie, Fast, with his smoky Brooklyn drawl, laments, "Back then you didn't listen to what was true. Now it's all we want to hear from you. It's not about right, it's not about wrong." Now, to me, those 2 things have no connection whatsoever.
Nothing to do with each other at all. For some reason, every time I hear one of these press releases, they strike me as something that was written by someone without a backspace key on their keyboard. There is no way there was any kind of looking back, typing back, editing process. This is just...
first draft.
Have you ever seen like really early AI text generation where all it would think about is what's the last word I've said and what's a word that works all right as a pair with that word, and then repeat. Okay, now what's the last word I've said? Because every single one of those word pairs sort of, you can get by. It's just when you take 3 or 4 of them in a go that it becomes absolute drivel.
But I mean, maybe this is the punchline to this whole thing, is that actually, after ripping into Lydia Sherwood for so many episodes, it will finally be revealed that she was AI all along. And so sad as it is, we approach our final facepalm.
We're just out of mistakes.
That's it. We've perfected ourselves over the last 53 episodes.
Good for life, terrible for content production.
So I'm reaching back for a classic here. I was reminded of this one the other day when I was thinking about the shows that I used to go to when I was in the Sound on Sound office, working in their editorial team. Every year, we would actually come to Germany to the Frankfurt Music Messe.
Okay.
And at the time, the Frankfurt Music Messe was the biggest show in Europe.
Right.
The only bigger show really worldwide was the NAMM show in the US. And so the Music Messe was a big deal as far as we were concerned, and pretty much the whole of the SOS office went mob-handed over to Frankfurt for a few days.
Amazing.
Because they'd often announce new products. You get to meet all the distributors, all the manufacturers and everything there, because everyone was in one place. And there were genuinely exciting product launches there. Like, for example, I remember going to see the first demonstration of Melodyne's DNA technology.
Wow. Okay, yeah.
Just being in a room and watching a bunch of hardened music tech journalists just dropping their jaws when the guy said, "Oh yeah, and I'll get rid of this note now, or I'll shift it to a different one."
You would.
The impossible suddenly became possible.
I remember that my first real jaw drop on Melodyne DNA was someone changing the notes inside a guitar chord.
Yeah.
Which, for me, was just such a tight bundle of unopenable nonsense.
Yeah.
You can put it all up, you can put it all down, but you cannot get in the middle of it.
No.
And then, apparently, you just can.
Yeah.
I can't imagine being in that room.
I mean, I actually ended up reviewing that first Melodyne DNA thing for the magazine.
Oh, okay.
I mean, they can do their demos and they can choose the audio that happens to work with their algorithm.
Yeah.
So you're always a little bit sceptical, even though it was bloody impressive what they did. It was an acoustic guitar thing. But the one that really got me was that I took a string quartet recording and I flipped it into the minor.
Oh, wow.
And, I mean, that was the audio example I would send out to everyone and go, this thing is incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't actually include it with the audio files I provided for the piece because it was copyright material, but that was just one of those moments I thought, wow. But, I mean, on the flip side, every year you'd go around and see just some stupid products, crazy products. And in fact, to this day, I still have on the wall of my studio a flyer from the Flavor Reeds company.
Oh, yeah?
It's a whole bunch of reeds that are provided with different fruit flavours.
Oh, no, you're joking.
And they're all different colours. And the strapline was, "Taste the music."
Oh, that's hilarious. And this was real.
Absolutely. For clarinet and alto sax in 3 stiffnesses.
My word. Okay. Sure. I mean, in their defence, we're still talking about it.
Yeah, I don't even know whether the company still exists, but it was a cracker. In 10 fun flavours.
That's magnificent.
But the Frankfurt Musikmesse was also legendary amongst the staff as a massive booze-up.
Oh, yeah.
And basically, it was pretty soul-crushing, trolling around all the halls, looking at all these reissues of synthesizers and whatever. Most of it was really not interesting at all, and you just had to get all the stuff so you could write it up for the news pages. And it was a real grind going around all these things. And the noise everywhere was so much, it really ground you down. So you were ready to go out on the lash every evening.
I believe that.
And you'd end up in some bar somewhere far too late. There was a lot of being extremely ill / hungover in hotel rooms and then kind of falling out of bed and having to do the same thing the following day.
Okay.
It's like 3 or 4 days of the show. And this is where the face palms come in, because it was one year where, I'd thought that I'd got round the show and done all the stuff I needed to do. And so I was like, oh, thank heavens, I can really get 6 sheets to the wind this evening because there's nothing else I need to do. And so was heavily into the bevies already by the time I had a conversation with one of my colleagues and discovered that there'd actually been the announcement of a last-minute press conference for the following morning.
Okay.
Between Yamaha and Roland. I mean, this was a time when... it was Yamaha, Roland, Korg were pretty much the biggest names in, synths and hardware music stuff. I mean, there was a lot of hardware studio equipment still.
Okay, so a couple of fairly heavy hitters.
I mean, Roland had things like the V-synth, and Yamaha had all those great physical modelling synths like the VM1 or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
They also had head-to-head competing multi-trackers that were the king of the multi-track hill in both camps. The Yamaha had the 2416 or something, and Roland had the VS2480, and they were always vying to be which was the best one.
Oh, interesting.
They also had competing transmission standards.
Right, but incompatible with each other.
Roland had the R-Bus format that they did for all the digital mixers, and Yamaha had done MLAN, which was a similar kind of thing going between different mixers and interfaces and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so it was like, oh, wow, if something is coming from Yamaha and Roland as a joint press conference, this could be huge. And we were already well out on the lash and really kind of didn't care at that point and stayed out far, far too late.
What?
Despite the fact that this joint press release was at 9 a.m. the following morning.
Gluttons for punishment.
And I must have got in at about, 4 in the morning or something. Barely standing, and I really don't know quite how it was. I managed to get myself through staring at a cup of coffee to this press conference at 9 a.m. in the morning.
No, I can't imagine either.
To be fair, with a lot of extremely bleary-looking music tech journalists and various pundits and stuff. But the place was packed. Because it was hotly anticipated. It's like, you could see all the big wigs that we knew from the, Yamaha and Roland. All hobnobbing and up on the stage and whatever else. And so then the guy walks up to the podium and starts building up the anticipation. Yes, we've decided to bring together GM and XG into a new format called GM2.
That's what you dragged yourself out of bed for.
It's like... the very worst thing you could possibly be forced to listen to was then with a massive hangover at 9 in the morning.
Oh, God, of course, you had to listen to that in your current state.
Being assaulted then by all the cheesy synth brass patches and...
Oh, that's amazingly awful.
How, you now had a shakuhachi that was available in the same slot in GM and XG and... And it was so unnecessary because there was no reason I had to be at the show at that time in the morning. I'd done it all.
Oh, my word.
Oh, there was a lot of face palming going on there.
The beauty of it is a collective face palm. Because you weren't the only one feeling that way.
Yeah, we could feel our pain together.
Had you been clever enough to sit near the door?
No, of course not. No.
So you were right in the midst of it.
You couldn't beat a hasty retreat.
Nothing to be done.
Oh, no.
All of which means I have been given the singular honour and huge responsibility of what taste of jam to leave in our mouths. But before we get to that, we are, of course, gonna need some toast.
Well, yes.
And
a toast for the ages.
I picked this one for a few reasons. It's one from the vaults.
Oh, right.
And I thought, how can I kind of sacrifice myself for the good of the show? This is one of my favourites, in no small part because if memory serves, it was one of your least favourites. And so in that spirit of cooperation, I give you some spread toast.
Oh, I remember it well.
Oh.
It's like an old friend.
God, I can taste it. Taste the delicious toast, I mean. Wow. Okay.
I mean, I thought you might be hitting me with this toast foley. Hello, Breakers, and welcome to the episode number 54.
Oh, that's even better. Have we ever done that?
This whole episode, it's an entire episode of Toast Foley because the podcast's toast.
Oh, God, that's so much better than mine. So, listeners, I'm genuinely tempted to ask Mike to just restart this segment so I can steal his joke.
Oh, no, but I love the fact that we're down memory lane. It feels full circle.
Oh, so for those of you who haven't re-listened recently, I am convinced and remain convinced that the sound of aerosol deodorant being sprayed near a mic is equivalent to toast being spread.
Yeah.
I'm in a very small room. This was a bad decision. And if you claim to have not caught the audio and needed it one more time, I would call you a liar and refuse.
The Lynx effect is now in action.
Oh, this is actually Dove Invisible Dry.
Thankfully, not inaudible dry.
Haven't found the market for that one yet.
Well, isn't that a roll-on?
Yes, roll-on is stealth deodorant.
Although, I don't know, maybe that's the low noise version and that actually the stick is the true stealth.
Okay, so stick is analog.
The roller has gone through a DSD process on the way to analog.
Yes, exactly. And actually, because it's fair to say the spray-on has a really high noise floor.
That's true.
There's an awful lot of hiss coming out of those. All of which is to say, I'm happy to have brought myself so low because that allows for this incredible comeback, this incredible return to grace. As I've only done once, maybe twice before in this section, I am pitching an entire album to you.
Oh, wow, cool.
It's less than an hour and...
I mean, can it possibly measure up to Yngwie Malmsteen's Fire and Ice, though? I mean, it's a high bar has been set.
I'm going to go ahead and say that I don't think it's trying to. I don't think that's its particular aim.
Yeah.
If I had my druthers, I would say the name, then our listeners would go away, listen to it, and then come back here. And the reason, very specifically, is if I had been told too much about this album, I never would have listened to it. As it is, it's my favourite album of the year.
Oh, wow.
But to describe it is necessarily, unfortunately, to sell it massively short.
Oh, that's a real dilemma, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like you don't want to shout about it because it'll dissuade people from going to listen to it.
There is an ancient Zen koan that a man is clinging onto a tree with his teeth.
Oh, right.
And the tree is on the edge of a cliff, and below him is just 100-foot drop.
Yes.
And a student comes up to him and says, "What is Zen?" And the state of this man is the state of a teacher, because if he leaves his mouth shut, he loses, and if he opens his mouth, he loses.
Yes.
And that's how I feel about this album, Where Is Home by Abel Selako.
Okay.
And I'm now going to send you, Mike, the opening track.
Exciting.
It's 6 minutes long.
Let's have a listen.
Okay, Mike, so you have just heard the opening track of this album, and I'd love to hear your unfiltered, honest response.
Well, there's a difference between a salad and an incredible eating experience. You know, you can get a salad which has all the things you kind of expect in it. You've got some lettuce and tomatoes and some carrot and some cucumber. You know, the kind of thing you'd get as a side salad in your Pizza Hut, right?
Yeah, sure.
And it's all got those kind of elements that could be good, but they're all very generic. And then there are some times where you'll go somewhere and you'll have a salad. And it's like, you think, oh, there's lettuce. And then you realise it's a type of lettuce you've never had before. And it's like several different lettuces. And it reminds you what's great about lettuce. And then you look over and you think it's a carrot. And actually, it's a strange type of orange beetroot that is slightly different. It's richer and you didn't even know existed.
Oh, beautifully said.
And, you know, and the dressing has some kind of element of cider vinegar in that you've never experienced before in a dressing. And it's like that with this. It's like it's got all these things in it where you go, oh, you know, I really like rich kind of cello textures. And it goes, yeah, I know you do, and we're going to give you them. But we're going to give you them even better than you thought they would be. Well, you know, I like a cappella vocals. And they go, well, yeah, but don't you like Ladysmith Black Mombasa vocals better? But actually, wouldn't you like them a bit more kind of modern and slightly more heterophonic than it was before? And, you know, actually, do you want some nice beefy kind of low bass notes and a bit of strings where you need it? And how about not not just any cellist, we get Yo-Yo Ma in to contribute as well.
Right.
And so I see your problem that you've had here, is that you're trying to tell people, I had this great salad the other day.
Yeah.
And the moment you say, I had this great salad, they go, yeah, it's just a salad, mate.
See, in that respect, it gets worse because Abel Seleko, the title artist, is a South African cellist. And it would be true to say that this is an album that combines classical cello with South African percussion and choral traditions, with Mongolian throat singing, with West African kora, and by which time I have shut off.
Yeah, I mean, that is a description of some of the most inexcusable albums ever made.
Right, it's just like, oh God, oh no. Even saying that it had Yo-Yo Ma, while a wonderful cellist, has been guilty of some of these truly terrible albums, which sound for all the world like you took a brilliant koto player and Yo-Yo Ma, and you put them in a room for exactly half an hour, and you've made a half-hour album.
It's that lack of backspace key again.
Yes, exactly. So this is what's difficult about this album for me. It is a salad, and it becomes more salady the more you try to describe it, but it is gorgeous.
Yeah.
Anyone who's been following the rising stars of the London scene, this album is a who's who. There is Alice Svadsky, there is Fred Thomas, there is Max Bailey, there is Kodali Koyate. Of the West African Koyates, this family from which the finest kora players have come since time immemorial.
Right.
It's incredible, and I wouldn't have listened to it. I will put my hand on my heart and say, even though it wasn't pitched to me like this, it was just sent to me as, hey, you should listen to this album. I am unlikely enough to listen to a music track a close friend sends me, because that's 4 minutes of my life. That would be ridiculous. This is an hour of my life, and you haven't even given me a track to start with. You've just said, try this album. So
I mean, they could have given you the 45-second track number 4.
they could have done.
Maybe that would have been the gateway drug.
The only reason I heard it and that I'm able to bring it to you is that I received this message at 5:30 in the morning at Stansted Airport as I was about to join an interminably long queue. And I thought, you know what? There are worse ways I could spend this time.
And it's the first time you've ever thought, I wish this queue could last forever.
Oh, yes. And all of the 100 different influences, the global influences, they are thoughtfully and well integrated.
Yeah.
Listen, you've just listened to us for an hour. So don't you be giving me my time's too precious, any of that nonsense. You've just listened to me and Mike for a whole hour. You can afford to give 55 minutes and 18 seconds to this incredible album.
Would you say that track number 1 should get you if you listen to it? Should hook you in?
If you listen to track number 1 and you think this is nothing that gets me, by all means, put it away. My bad. We have extremely different music tastes.
Yeah.
If, after listening to track 1, you think this is gorgeous, but doesn't quite have the energy and punch that I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Listen on. Listen on. We are getting to kind of calabash-driven rhythms and, intense throat-sung dance pieces. They're coming. They're coming.
Yeah.
So if that's what you're hungering for, listen on.
I mean, I just love the fact that things would come in and you go, ooh, that sounds nice. And it's like, I didn't know that was what I needed then, but it's arrived and reminded me that that was what I was looking for at that point.
Yeah, you don't know it until you hear it.
I mean, there's a problem with a lot of people who play classical instruments and they try and broaden out and cross boundaries, that they end up playing in a kind of a classical way in other styles.
Right.
They take their essential classicalness with them.
Yeah.
But certainly there were bits here where I thought, no, this comes across like a different instrument is playing, or like someone who normally plays an oud or whatever it is playing this cello, rather than like a cello player is trying to do the classical cello thing over a tabla.
Yes.
You know?
Oh, thank you. Yes, you couldn't have said that one better. I don't have this confirmed. I would put a good amount of money that Abel has studied Moringhur.
Right.
Which is essentially the Mongolian cello. It's two-strung, it's fingered differently, the strings are very differently constructed.
Right.
But, in a word, it's the Mongolian cello.
Yeah.
Because a huge amount of his playing, this kind of percussive bowing, the attack on the strings, and even like the gallopy rhythms he does later on.
And also the boldness of not playing vibrato.
Yes, right?
Letting notes have that pure held thing. yeah, immediately switches me on to any kind of string player because there are so many for whom the vibrato is just a reflex.
And I mean, goodness me, it can cover a range of sins.
Well, yes, as I well know. As we both well know.
So yeah, that is my jam. This has been my jam my entire month.
Exceptional.
I cannot recommend it enough.
A worthy one to finish with, I would say.
There is also there's a video on YouTube of that first track, which is basically a video of the live recording with which they did it.
Oh, wow. Because I had questions about it.
About how it was recorded.
I was like, how much of this is overdubbed? How much is live? Because I wasn't sure from a production perspective, because it sounded great. And I thought it has a little bit of that kind of slightly holographic quality that I associate with a live performance. Mm-hmm. Was it recorded live?
My interpretation is that Yo-Yo Ma was added on after.
Right.
Which is fair enough if you got out on one person. But yes, that everything else was captured in the room.
Desperately trying to think of a joke about overdubbing Yo-Yo Ma, but I can't think of one. Oh, well.
Oh, well, we'll save that for the anniversary episode in a year.
It'll be the ultimate staircase humour, won't it? It's like, as I was saying, last decade. So it only remains for us to say thanks to all you lovely listeners for tuning in every month for our nonsense for the last 4.5 years.
4.5 years.
And of course, to our plucky patrons who have been helping in at least a small way to support our editing and hosting efforts, and a well-balanced cohort of patrons on the issue of Arnaudi.
I think they've managed to keep the peace in this house remarkably well. The fact that we haven't come to blows after all this time is quite something. Nothing to plug, just want to do the thing that Mike just did and say thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for coming with. It's been really fun.
And if you would like to...
and if you...
Sorry, go on.
Yeah,
you go on.
4.5 years!
You'd have thought we'd have managed by now.
You'd have thought we'd have got some kind of system in place. If you would like to be in touch about anything at all, probably the easiest way is on Instagram at @wittenand_. That's WHITTENAND_. Or on my email, johnwhittenmusic, JONWHITTEN music, @gmail.com. It would be lovely to hear from you. How about you, Mike? What are you plugging?
Well, the website's still going to be up, projectstudiotbreak.com. I'm just going to kind of leave that up as a monument to our long-term folly. And you can always email us at tbreak@projectstudiotbreak.com.
Yeah, that'll come through.
And of course, if you still want to sign up for the Patreon campaign, that's patreon.com/projectstudiotbreak. There's still the equivalent of 10 episodes of extra content on there, and there are some remaining extras that I'm still going to be rolling out over the next few months as well.
It's worth saying that if you're hankering to keep hearing Mike's podcasty voice going, they have other options, don't they, Mike?
There are one or two, yeah.
Where can people continue to listen?
Well, if you'd like to hear more of my serious technical podcasting voice, talking about how a little bit more at 5 kilohertz would help this guitar come through the mix or whatever it is, yes, you can find all the other kind of stuff I do over at cambridge-mt.com, or the extra kind of videos and podcasts and everything that I do are available on that Patreon campaign. That's at patreon.com/cambridge-mt, all one word. So,
yeah, with all that said...
You know what you've got to say.
I do, and I'm holding back.
Eking it out.
Ta-ra, pets.
Ta-ra!